I'll start with the latest, and I'm afraid it's not good news. 20 Indian soldiers have been killed in the Galwan Valley. This is according to sources, and before some of you start preaching us on social media, I'll say killed in action and not martyred on this show. Because that's how the army describes it. Soldiers are killed in action. China too has lost men, almost the same number, including a commanding officer. We cannot confirm a number. The Chinese government won't give a figure. They never do. But our sources tell us that Chinese troops constructed a temporary structure on the Indian side of the border. This is how it began. Remember, we were talking about disengagement. So what happened suddenly? Because the Chinese did not walk the talk. They kept talking about disengagement, but they built this temporary structure on the Indian side of the border, a clear violation of the consensus reached during the military-level talks. This temporary structure was built somewhere along patrolling point number 14, PP14. Indian troops destroyed the structure yesterday. The Chinese side returned in big numbers, prepared for a face-off. China has an advantage in this terrain. It has built roads on its side of the Galwan Valley. For India, the Galwan River poses a serious disadvantage. Crossing it is quite a task. Nonetheless, Colonel Santosh Babu and his battalion went ahead to block the Chinese incursion. A violent clash ensued. A number of soldiers apparently got pushed into the Galwan River. So far, 3 bodies have been recovered. But the number of casualties is higher. As I said, the situation is being described as quote-unquote very serious. It's no more business as usual. For the first time in 40 years, soldiers have been killed in an India-China border standoff. Officially, the casualties include 2 soldiers and a senior officer. Colonel Santosh Babu, the commanding officer of the 16th Bihar Regiment. No firing is said to have taken place. It was a skirmish, a physical brawl. This is being called a result of 6 weeks of massive build-up. It occurred at a time when both sides were said to be de-escalating. And you must hear the Chinese version of the story. Beijing is suggesting that India provoked first. It accuses Indian troops of illegally crossing into Chinese territory. The Chinese Foreign Ministry says that it was a quote-unquote serious violation of the consensus reached during disengagement talks. But China is yet to admit if it suffered any casualties. Listen to this.
What is shocking is that on June 15th, the Indian troops seriously violated the consensus of the 2 sides. They crossed the border illegally twice and carried out provocative attacks on Chinese personnel, resulting in serious physical conflicts between the 2 border forces. China has lodged strong protests and solemn complaints with the Indian side, and once again solemnly demands that the Indian side strictly restrain the frontline troops in accordance with the relevant spirit. Do not cross the border, do not act provocatively, do not take any unilateral actions that will complicate the border situation.
Do not complicate the border situation. Do not take provocative action. Do not take unilateral action. This is China's message to India. But who really is complicating the border situation? Who is being provocative? Here's something that I want to tell you. The Chinese army has a system of political commissars. These are officers who serve as a link between the party and the army. They're responsible for political indoctrination and for motivating soldiers in combat situations. Now our sources tell us that the political commissar in this case was instrumental in ratcheting up the tension and provoking the scuffle. Clearly, this has gone too far, and India, we are told, is prepared for any eventuality. India is much better prepared today to deal with the Chinese offensive than it was at the time of Doklam. The army has reportedly been placed on an orange alert. This is the second highest level of alert, second only to the red alert. It is usually placed in anticipation of a strike, a large-scale confrontation. The army has sounded the orange alert several times in the past, mostly after or in anticipation of terror attacks. So have we reached a point of no return? The answer is no. Talks are very much on. Dialogue is being given top priority. India and China were engaged in marathon talks through the day today. The Indian Defence Minister chaired a crucial meeting to review the situation. It went on late till late this evening. It was attended by the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, the 3 service chiefs, the Foreign Minister of India, S. Jaishankar. The Prime Minister is being briefed about all these developments regularly. What happened last evening is a result of weeks of Chinese provocation. China kept talking about dialogue and confrontation. Its army kept infiltrating on the border. The Chinese state media constantly reported on how the PLA was preparing for battle. They put out videos of military exercises. They reported on how China was reinforcing its defenses. India went with a mature response. Though India was upset for the first time in many years, the Indian Prime Minister did not wish the Chinese President Xi Jinping on his birthday, which was yesterday, 15th of June. No greetings this time. India did not ask for this confrontation, but India must respond to it. China has built roads that give them obvious advantage. Now, India has been building roads, and that is why China is being provocative. India must not stop. This is not 1962. This is not even 2017. India is better prepared, as I said, with a different playbook. The best way to deal with a bully is to call its bluff. China cannot afford a war right now. India does not want a war. Giving Beijing any ground after all of this would be plain wrong. And we are not in the business of warmongering, but the opposite of war is not always peace. Sometimes it is capitulation. And that's something to be avoided at all costs.